Hey guys, welcome to 13.3. We are talking about optical instruments. So we're going to be talking about telescopes, microscopes, cameras, and what the inside of them look like and how we can kind of put together the mirrors and the lenses that we have discussed so far. So let's take a look. So what is a telescope? A telescope is basically an awesome instrument that is built up of lenses, or some of them also have a concave mirror, and it's usually a lot bigger than our eye, which is awesome because it's able to gather more of the light from objects that are super far away, like the stars, the galaxies, and able to give us a bigger picture. So the larger the telescope is, it can gather more than 1 million times more light than our human eye can, which is why we're able to see so many objects from so far away. And that's why when you look at the stars, you can see galaxies and they actually look like they're closer and they're brighter, and we can see more of their details. So one of the telescopes that we're going to talk about is called the refracting telescope. Basically, this telescope uses lenses to gather light from distant objects. And the way that it works is it has two convex lenses. Remember, convex lenses is the ones that curve out a little bit. And the convex lenses are the objective lens and then the eyepiece lens. The objective lens is where the light is going to first initially come through, and then the eyepiece lens is where you're looking through, putting your eye up against it. And both of these lenses are going to help gather information and then help the light from distant objects kind of be more focused so that they can create an image. Figure 17 in this section is really, really good to help you. There's a lot of awesome figures in your textbook that kind of just break down these telescopes and what they look on the inside. So I really highly encourage you to follow along with your textbook. So this is an example of the refracting telescope. Basically, you can see that you have an eyepiece that is located right here. And that eyepiece is where, like I said, your eye is going to be up against. And then you have an objective lens in the front. And then you have light that's coming in. And they're usually going to be traveling in parallel to the optical axis. So if you can kind of imagine an optical axis right there in the middle between those light rays, they're going to be coming in that way, and then they're going to be meeting at a focal point, and then they're going to meet at the eyepiece, which is going to help make it a lot bigger. So how does a refracting telescope work? First, the incoming light is going to pass through the objective lens that we saw in the previous image, the lens that's towards in the front of the telescope, the first lens, and then the light rays that are from the distant object are going to be pretty parallel. So they might be a little bit, distorted a little bit, but they're going to be pretty parallel to the optical axis of the lens. Second thing is that the objective lens is going to form a real image at the focal point of the lens within the body of the telescope. All right, so let's take a look at this real quick. So the objective lens, like I said, is right here. Oops. Let's change that color. The objective lens is right here, and it's going to form a real image at the focal point, okay? Thirdly, the eyepiece lens, which is right here, is the second lens, and that's going to magnify that real image that is being created by the objective lens. So it's going to make it look a lot bigger. Okay, and then you will see the picture of that. You will see the image of the distant objects bigger, and it's going to be inverted, which means like it's going to be upside down, and then it's going to be a virtual image of the real image formed by the objective lens. So that's why the objective lens, when the light goes through it, it's going to look bigger, but it's also going to be upside down. So you need to have another lens, which is going to be the eyepiece lens, that's going to make it upright so that you can see it. So then to have the detailed images of the distant objects, the objective lens has to be large. So that's why you can tell from the picture that the objective lens is a lot bigger than the eyepiece, because it has to take in more light from distant objects. We also have to make sure that all of the lenses are very well supported, because if they are not, they're going to cause the image to look very distorted, like very windy and sloppy and things like that. So now let's talk about reflecting telescopes. So reflecting telescopes is a telescope that uses mirrors and lenses. So refracting used two lenses, objective and eyepiece. Reflecting is going to, you can kind of tell in the word reflecting that it's going to be using a mirror, because remember, mirrors reflect and lenses allow light to pass through them. And both of these together are going to collect and focus light from objects that are far away. The mirrors are also need to be very well supported. And this telescope, the reflecting telescope, is going to be a lot larger than the refracting telescope. So just keep that in mind, okay? So how does the reflecting telescope work? The first thing is that the light is going to enter at an opening of the telescope, and it's going to hit a concave mirror at the opposite end. All right, so light is going to come in, it's going to go through the opening of the telescope, and it's going to go through and hit a concave mirror that's going to be all the way at the opposite end. Then the light is going to reflect off the mirror, this concave mirror, and it's going to converge. So it's going to come together. And before the light hits the focal point, it's going to actually hit another mirror, a plane mirror, okay? Once it hits the plane mirror, it's going to converge at a focal point, and then the light is going to be reflected from the plane mirror into the eyepiece. So let's take a look. So like I said, you have light that's coming in this way. Once it comes in, it's going to go all the way down, and it's going to go all the way down. And it's going to hit your concave mirror. Once it hits the concave mirror, it's going to be reflected off of it, and it's going to hit your flat mirror or your plane mirror. Once it hits your plane mirror, it's going to meet at another focal point right here, and you're going to see it through the eyepiece, which is right here. Okay? Rays that converge or come together at the same focal point, they're going to create a real image of the distant object that you're looking at through your telescope. And the whole point of the convex lens in the eyepiece is to help magnify the image. So remember, the convex lens is what we used in your eyeglasses and stuff like that to help you see. So it's going to be able to magnify the image of the stars, the galaxies, the things that are so far away that you can't even see with your naked eye. These lenses are very important in making it magnified. Okay, you guys probably heard of the Hubble Space Telescope. And space telescopes are so important because they are able to give us objects of Earth's atmosphere, or not Earth's atmosphere, I'm sorry, like the galaxies and the stars in a clearer way, because our Earth's atmosphere actually distorts how they look. So what we see from here may actually look a lot different than how it would seem when you're out in space and taking these pictures. And because of that, NASA decided to build the Hubble Space Telescope, and they launched it into space to produce sharp and detailed images. And this telescope was able to take in light from planets and stars and galaxies and give us an awesome images of them. And this telescope also is a type of reflecting telescope. That means that it uses two mirrors to form an image. So this is a picture of the Hubble Space Telescope. So cool. Look how intricate it is. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine the amount of thought and calculations that went into building it. But this is what is producing images like this. Like, wow, that is so cool that we can have images. And it also makes you really like Just imagine how creative God is and how magnificent he is, that he's able to create things like this. Like, it literally looks like you're getting a peek of what heaven looks like through it. So very, very cool stuff. Okay, microscopes. Microscope, you obviously probably learned a little about this in life science, but it's a device that you use two complex lenses that have a very short focal length, okay? And the reason they have short focal length is so that they can magnify super, super small objects that are also very close to you. So remember, if you had a slide with a couple cells on it and you put it in the plate of the microscope, you're able to see that object even though it's close. You're able to see it much bigger than it is because you can't see a cell with a naked eye. So microscopes have an objective lens, which is closest to the specimen that you're looking at, and then they have an eyepiece lens, which is what your eye is looking through. The objects viewed are close to the objective lens, so you can actually move the objective lens to be closer and closer to the object. You do have to be careful, because when I was in high school and college, there were many cases where students would look at their specimen and they would try to get closer to get a better view, and they would accidentally crush it because the objective lens have different sizes. The objects that you are usually studying are placed on a transparent slide, and then they are illuminated from below. So on the bottom, there is usually a light source that comes to light up the slide that you're looking at, and so that you can see clearly what the specimen is. So how does a microscope work? You have light that passes through the object on the slide to the objective lens, which is a convex lens. And this is going to form a real enlarged image of the object. Distance from the object is going to be between 1 and 2 focal lengths. So remember, when we talked about this in the past sections, when you are within 1 or 2 focal lengths of the object is actually magnified. It looks a lot bigger than if it was greater than those 2 images. Second, the real image is going to be magnified again by the eyepiece that you're looking through, which is also convex. And it's going to create a virtual enlarged image. And then the final image is going to be a lot bigger than the object, the actual size of the object. And it depends on the focal lengths of the 2 lenses. So depending on where you have the focal length of the lenses located, it's going to determine how big the object is. The way that you can calculate total magnification is by multiplying the magnification of the objective lens with the magnification of the eyepiece. So if you did, 10, if the magnification of the objective is 10, and the magnification of the eyepiece is 10, it would be 100 total magnification. So here you have a example of a compound microscope. You can see that the light source would be coming from down here. The diaphragm is what is going to control the amount of light source. So you can have a little bit of light coming in, or you can have a lot of it depending on how dark or light the specimen is. And then the stage is where you are going to be placing your specimen on the slide. You can see your objectives. All of these are your objectives. So you can see how they vary in size. And because of that, you can, change how much magnification you're getting. And then you also have your eyepiece, which is right here. You can also, and that will help create that final large image. Lastly is cameras. Cameras are awesome tools that we can use to capture a moment forever. So how this works is that light rays from distant objects are coming in almost parallel to each other as they go through the lens of the camera, just like we talked about in the telescope. There is something called a shutter in your camera, which basically allows light to enter the camera for a specific amount of time. And then the light that's being reflected off the object enters the camera through something called the aperture. As As this happens, the image is going to be focused on something called an image sensor, which is basically going to convert the light that's coming in into electrical signals. And those electrical signals are able to be processed into an image by your computer so that you can, look at the picture on a screen, or you can able to print it out, hang it up, be fancy with it.